So we'll get on with the program here. Marcia, would you like to introduce our distinguished guests?
We are fortunate tonight to have with us two members of Prairie Hill Cohousing. Prairie Hill, built on an idea from Denmark, is the first cohousing development in Iowa. And it is because of the hard work of Dell Holland and Carolyn Dyer and a few others that it is being built now and people are moving in. Dell and Carolyn are founding members of Prairie Hill. A group of interested people started talking about forming a co-housing community 7 years ago. They had to study what was involved, find land, find funding. It's been a lot of work, but exciting to see the concept develop. Carolyn and Dell both serve on the board of managers and have guided the construction process. Carolyn is a retired journalism professor teaching journalism at Colorado State University, the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and the University of Iowa. She is a member of the Iowa City Planning and Zoning Commission, which reviews plans for new buildings and developments in Iowa City. In her spare time, she has enjoyed renovating and restoring houses. Her early education at Radburn, New Jersey, exposed her to one of the first modern planned communities in the United States. She has longed to plan her own home, and Prairie Hill has given her this opportunity. Dell is also a retired teacher, spending 19 out of 30 years teaching at alternative high schools. He has taught at many levels, in Mason City, Iowa City, and finally in Cedar Rapids. Through the years, he has worked continually on environmental problems. I met him first when he was working with environmental advocates. Now he is at the Johnson County Advisory Commission, and he works with the Bike Library. Please welcome Dell and Carolyn.
We're glad to be here and glad to see so many familiar faces and share with you another way to work toward a more sustainable future. And this is our way of moving in that direction. So, yeah.
First, we're going to talk about co-housing a little bit, and then about our community, and then about some of the characteristics of sustainable development, both in terms of the site and in the building practices. Co-housing.
I was going to say, and the format that was advertised for this was for us to speak to 7:15 and then allow question and answers. But for us, we'd rather, if you've got a question, just pop it out and we'll talk about it as we go along. Because there may be things in the beginning, we don't want you to have to wait to the end.
So as it's said on the slide, co-housing is a community that's planned by the people who will live there, and so it responds to the things that are important to them. It started in Denmark, and a couple of young architecture students who were studying in Denmark were entranced by the communities there and brought co-housing, but named it in English and brought it back to this country in the 1980s. And there are about 150 that exist, and about 150 being planned. It was kind of a drag during the recession, but since the recession has lifted pretty much, there's been an explosion of new communities in process. This is a map showing roughly where co-housing communities are. They're concentrated most heavily on the east and west coasts. Washington, Oregon, and California have the most, and then New England and North Carolina are the other places. There are not very many in the Midwest. There's none in Indiana. There are none, or there are just a few around Madison in Wisconsin, and one or two around the Twin Cities in Minnesota. and us. As I said earlier, co-housing develops according to the values of the people who plan to live there. And originally co-housing communities were primarily multi-generational. And we have adopted that approach to co-housing. We are interested in having people of all ages, whether they belong to us or don't belong to us. More recently, and you may have read in various news media about senior co-housing communities starting up, and there are a number of those. We also hope to have some diversity economically, socially, culturally. In co-housing, there is both community and privacy, and what that means is you have your own house or home, apartment, and you can hide out there if you like, or you can participate in community activities. So people sometimes think of co-housing as if it were like a commune in the 60s. We share a lot of things, but we don't share economic activity, and we have complete private homes, so we can retreat. We've committed ourselves to building green buildings, and we'll talk about that in a bit, and handling or dealing with our land in a sustainable way. All co-housing involves some kind of sharing, whether it's lawnmowers or table saws or vacuum cleaners, and we expect to do that as well. Our site is located about a mile from the university, a little over a mile to here, and it's walkable to a lot of other things. Co-housing emphasizes alternative transportation. Typically, parking is on the perimeter of a co-housing community, and so people walk on sidewalks between homes. We're on a bus route, or 2 bus routes actually. We do have parking on the perimeter, but we've acknowledged that this is Iowa and it can get nasty in the winter. So we have parking scattered on the perimeter, so people don't have as far to go. And we will have some garages, but we also expect to share rides and maybe even cars. I mentioned where we can walk to a lot of places. I did an inventory of the businesses around our site, and within a quarter of a mile to a mile, all of these things are there, which surprised us all. In some respects, we have close access to more resources than you would living downtown. Our site is 8 acres. We're building on roughly 4 acres, and the rest of the site we plan to use for gardens and prairies and orchard. We expect to follow permaculture principles, which other people could explain better than I can. But it involves growing things that you use, like herbs right by your kitchen door, and things that you would grow to eat less frequently at different distances away, and a lot of other things. But on the hill, we plan to build our gardens on the hilltop. Our site is located on the hill overlooking the airport, and it has one of the best views in town. This is a site plan which shows the gardens and orchards on the left and the community of buildings on the right. we have several different types of buildings, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you can see that we have a street that's a dead end. So it will be a place that will be safe to play, safe for people to play. We eventually will have playground, but we're also next to Benton Hill Park, so there's some play facilities there. We also have what looks like a pretty good sledding hill and maybe a pretty good ice skating pond. We're not quite sure whether we will or not have that or not. One of our values is to be sustainable, and for that reason we oriented the buildings so that almost all of them are just about perfectly sited to accept solar panels, and all of them are sited so that they can get some benefit from solar energy.
So we've put out a request for proposals to a couple of, I mean, we have, one of our members is an electrical engineer who's done a lot of solar photovoltaic work, and so he's guided us, and we've put out a request for proposals, and we've gotten several proposals from some different suppliers in the area, and we just got something from one last week who said that, 90 days from when we say go, they'll expect to have us to be producing the solar energy on the building. So we're really looking forward to making that happen throughout the community.
And in case you're interested, the new federal tax law preserves the tax credits for solar energy, the federal credits. The bill in the Iowa legislature would end the Iowa tax credits, but it hasn't gone through both houses of the legislature. It's pretty disappointing to see the move to end support of solar energy. Mentioned shared resources. One of our architects, Martha Norbeck, who some of you may know, studied co-housing communities in Sweden on a Fulbright, and she was studying what physical characteristics of a co-housing community would contribute to creating and maintaining the community aspect. And there were two things. One is having a laundry, and the other is having mailboxes. And the rationale for that is that if you have to go to put your laundry in, you're likely to hang around and chat with folks. And if you want to get your mail, you need to go to the centrally located place to do that, and you're bound to run into people.
And so we've taken, Martha's working with us quite a bit, and so we've taken that wisdom and put those things both in our common house. So there will be reason for all members to go to the common house every day there's mail, and as frequently as they do wash. And on the other hand, I want to talk about laundry a little bit as an example of shared resources. I use myself as an example that I've got a washer dryer in my basement in the house I live in now, and I use the washer probably once a week and the dryer a half dozen times a year. And that's not very good use of resources. And so having a laundry in the common house that I can use will easily meet my needs and the needs of many other people. And we want to have each of us have a washer dryer. At the same time, all the units are being built with hookups for washers and dryers. So if for whatever reason you choose to have one, you may have one, but I'm sure not going to have one. And you want to tell your story, Dan?
Well, I'm going to live in one of the first houses. I don't have a dryer right now, and I was really looking forward to having a washer and dryer in my new home. But then it's up now, and I realize it's just a few steps from the house. So it's silly to have a washer and dryer in my home, because all I have to do is walk a few steps, and I'm at the common house. So.
And so that's exactly what, the research said, that if it's easy to share resources, you will share resources. And by sharing resources, you'll have more interpersonal connections, and You know, we are going to end up talking a lot about physical parks in this community, but there's a whole lot of the interpersonal stuff that's as important, if not more important, in the long run.
Another aspect of sustainability in land use terms is not spreading out into the fringes of the developed part of the community. And we feel pretty fortunate to have found 8 acres of land right in the community, which means that it's walkable to a lot of things that I already mentioned.
So in case you don't know where it is, this is Benton Street, and the Iowa River would be over here. This is Benton Street going here, and Highway 1 here, and the airport's down here. And this is the last street that cuts down from Benton to Highway 1 before you get clear out the Sunset way out there. So as you're coming along, you're going up, you start up the hill, and right where it starts up real steeply, this is the old Roosevelt School, there's a little park there, and that's Benton Hill Park, which is actually this lot and this lot. And then, of course, this is our spot, with this being the part that we're developing, and this being the part that's going to be green.
And I assume you're aware, but part of infill development is that the utilities are already accessible, so you don't have to extend them. And things like the bus route are available.
And another thing we're really trying to do is do a good job with keeping our land like Iowa as we can for people living there in a modern context. So we are planning to plant all in that developed area a couple of species of prairie grasses, blue grama grass and buffalo grass, which don't grow very tall. These are just how it grows without mowing. And then it just kind of flops over, and so it's a little different aesthetic than a golf course, but these are drought-tolerant grasses, deep roots going down into the soil, so when it rains here, it's easier for that rainwater to stay on the land, which is what we are trying to do, is keep as much of the water on the land as we can. So another way, yeah?
I was just going to ask, was that sidewalk a permeable paver?
Actually, the sidewalks that we have are not permeable. It's crazy expensive.
Yeah, I saw something there that looked like.
Yeah, this was just a picture off the air.
Oh, okay.
And this is a picture from Coralville, where they've put in some bioretention cells, and that's another way of this soil beneath this area is engineered down, well, probably 4 feet, so that when water comes in there, yeah, you know about it from the Unitarian Church, has a bunch of that stuff there. It's another way of capturing a little larger rain event that runs off some and will stay here and then out into the soil underground.
So are you going to be able to put any in? Iowa City does not require it, right?
No, these
So
are these.
going to put some in, or
Well, so next slide.
Okay.
There's ours. Thank you, Deb. Yeah, so, it's not planted yet because it was wintertime. You guys were just right up against it too, but we were a little later than you. So it's not planted, but next spring we'll be planting a bunch of stuff in there, and they're really excited about the fact that that will be, and we'll, not only are we trying to be sustainable, but we're trying to model that prominently and make sure that the community knows about it. So we're right there on Miller Street with this thing, so people will be able to see it and say, hey, what's that? And we'll have some signage and inform people, and hopefully developers, other than us, will see, oh, people are buying these things. Maybe I should build them instead of these snout-nosed, sorry.
Are these units already built?
So-
Some of them are. We'll get to that in a minute. We have a grant to develop our site in a way that retains most of the rainwater on the site. And the bioretention cell is one part of it. There's a big detention pond, and the soil also is amended to promote drainage into the ground as opposed to off the
Yeah,
site.
and the planting of those natural grasses. So yeah, this is.
This is last week.
Yeah.
Um,
We get pretty excited about it because there's people living here now. We've got, let's see, at least.
Marcia, Craig, Donna, stand up. They moved in over the weekend. First co-housers in the state of Iowa.
So, I have a question.
Sure.
I drove by there yesterday and it looks like a lake.
Yes, and so you can't see it here, it's right here. There's a large retention pond, again, to try and manage the stormwater, but it's really not going to be a pond except with large rain events, and right now, because we got it blocked off so the water can't run out, so it isn't hauling, it's a construction site, so there's a lot of dirt that's moving there.
So that's what it is, it'll hold water.
In the large, the SUDAS, the new groundwater standards do require you to engineer a place to handle 100-year rain events. So in a huge rain event, there will be a lot of water, more than that bioretention cell can handle, and so it'll go there, and then it's designed so that slowly it'll release it out into the river instead of just all going right into the storm sewers and out and flooding Columbus Junction. It'll take more, but you're right. If you look there now, and that's why she was saying maybe skating because it's been frozen.
There also will be plants there.
Yeah.
There that aren't there yet. This is the first building taken a while ago. The building in which these people moved in, to which these people moved over the weekend.
And there's a whole lot of features of the buildings, but the big picture is that these are LEED certified homes. And in the whole corridor area, there's one LEED certified house right now, which is Martha Norbeck designed for her mom on Muscatine. So when we get done, we're going to have 32 more of them. So
What does that mean, LEED? What does that mean?
it is a green building standard. And it does all kinds of things. It talks about the energy use of the building. It talks about the construction techniques. It talks about the waste. It talks about where the materials come from. It talks about being...
Is
What?
that one of them?
There's the only one in the whole corridor, not just Iowa City, and it was just built last summer, and we're building 32 of them. And these folks live in the first. We have 3 times as many as the whole rest of the corridor already.
This is called a stack flat, which has 2 units on the lower floor and 2 on the
One here
upper
and
floor.
one here, and one here and one there, with a stairway in between. And yet, there's a ground level entrance here, and the people on the upper floor can step out the back. They will be able to right now. There's some more grading that has to be done, but they'll be able to step out on ground level.
And this is the common house, which is the central feature of co-housing communities. It also has 4 living units in it on the upper floor, 4
They're in kind of the corners of the building.
efficiency apartments that are 515 square feet. The lower level has a big community kitchen and dining room, an activity room, a room for kids.
Laundry.
And laundry. A room that we call the living room, which is smaller than the dining room for whatever kind of gatherings we choose to hold there.
And we're hoping that that's going to be open within a month.
This is the third building. It's single-story townhomes, all attached. Mine is the one on the left side.
And Nan's is right here.
How many feet are those?
two are 950 square feet and two are 800 square feet. The ones in the middle are 800, the ones on the end are 950. And this is the first duplex building. It has 1,200 square feet on each floor of
No,
each side. 1,200 square feet total on each side of the duplex, and the duplexes have 2 floors each. So this one you could enter down here, which is the back of it, and there's a, I don't have a picture of the front,
But the sidewalk goes along here, and you could come in the front on that level where there's.
and there's all of the buildings have porches, but that's another feature of co-housing. If you are feeling sociable but don't make too much effort, you hang out on your porch so other people notice that you're there and stop and read. This explains to some extent what LEED involves. It involves some other things as well. There are several categories. The more green you are, the higher the quality of metal that you reach. Gold, there is platinum beyond gold. So one element is that you protect the building from heat and cold and moisture. The materials, it's very, the one thing that's really important is using materials that are sustainably produced. So wood has to be certified from a renewable source. Most materials have to come from within 200 miles. Paints and sealers and glues and things like that have to be low VOC, which for most of us means that they don't smell very much. And the heating and cooling system and the insulation need to make the buildings energy efficient. One of our architects says that you'll be able to heat these with a hairdryer, which is a little bit of an exaggeration, but they are extremely tight.
So we thought you guys might be kind of interested in some of the nitty-gritty of these features of how this gets done. So this shows you a little bit. This is building the forms for the footings of the building, and they're built out of this material, which it's called Forema Drain because it both serves the side without any holes in it is where the concrete will get poured, and the other side has got little slits in it like ADS pipe does, and so it allows water that may come up against it to get into there, and then it drains off. So it's a way to deal with both water, and then also it's tied to a radon mitigation system. So there's a passive radon mitigation system that's tied into that Forema Drain thing. And then if it turns out that there's high levels of radon, we can just put a fan on it, and it's instantly an active system to mitigate radon.
Most of the building practices that our contractors have used haven't been used around here before. So to a large extent, our buildings are experimental.
And we're teaching techniques that hopefully they'll be using in other places. So then we got things poured, and you might be able to see there's kind of a black line right here. So that's where the foundation walls for this building are going to rise up. And so there's a water seal on top of that footing because concrete wicks water. So that keeps it from wicking it down here up into these foundation walls. The outside of them, that Forema Drain is running along here, and then they put gravel in, and then they cover the gravel with a filter fabric that keeps dirt from getting in and blocking up the holes so it doesn't work. So it's all these little details. Another thing was the first time I saw this being done on our place, they're putting insulation in beneath the floor of the building, and then they're covering it with plastic, and then that plastic gets sealed with a big overlap, like a 3-foot overlap, and it gets sealed. And then every place that there's a puncture through it for a drain pipe or that radon pipe, that gets taped up around so it's all tight so that radon isn't getting up and so that it keeps moisture out too. When the first time we were doing this, we got there before the concrete trucks arrived, and I said to the guys, hey, what do you think of this? And they said, man, this is really something. We've built $1 million homes and we've never seen anything like this. So we're trying to show it being done correctly. Then that foundation wall comes up, and again, there's a vapor seal right under this wood that's on top of that foundation wall to again keep moisture from moving into the house, and also air seal too.
Do you think you'll have humidity problems in the houses?
Good question, and we've got the answer, and if I don't get it to you,
Next
ask-
time.
well, it's not quite next, but we planned it.
That blue foam insulation is 3 inches thick.
Yeah, under the floors, so I mean, it's still a floor. And so we also put it up against the concrete walls. Those walls are insulated to an R24. The outside walls of the buildings are R27. First, a spray foam which blocks air moving in and out, and then spray fiberglass blown in there
And then a plastic sheeting over that.
in a 2x6 wall. Oh, I take back. Can you go back one? There's another little detail there, which shows there's 2 2x6s here, and right there, where those 2 2x6s, they've sealed that. You know, caulk down there. These babies are going to be tight. Sealing in the attic. Then they go around and put on this, you've seen it probably all over town, zip sheathing. It's an oriented strand board covered with a special proprietary stuff on the outside, and then some foam insulation on the inside. And then every joint is sealed with this tape, and they use a special roller called a J roller to roll that on to seal it down.
And the tape is stretchy, so they can stretch it around the openings for their windows and doors.
So here's the answer to your question, Bob. An energy recovery ventilator in every unit, or more than one in some units. So what that does is it brings air from outside and takes air from inside and runs them across each other. So it moderates the temperature from outside with the air that you're exhausting from inside, so you keep the inside fresh air. Because you've sealed it all up, and like Bob's saying, you might have moisture problems. Well, this is a way that you deal with that.
So does that sound like a fan running constantly?
It's
It's what?
it's, but I don't want you to think that you can hear it.
That's what I'm asking.
It is running, but you would not know it.
Okay.
They're really, really quiet. And then the heating and cooling are provided by mini splits. And they have an exterior air-to-air heat exchanger, and then it comes into an interior unit like this that moves the air inside. So that's mounted up on the wall, and it's just a little thing there, and it does both heating and cooling.
So that's your furnace?
No furnace, but yes, that's the equivalent. It's the furnace and the air conditioning, and there's this whole community is all electric. There's no natural gas in it, because we don't think that's a good thing to be doing like you do. So it's all electric, there isn't any gas.
So does that adjust for relative humidity?
It does, yes.
So when it's 0 degrees, humidity is extremely low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, I have not lived in it, so I can't tell you
That's
yet,
fine.
but ask me next year. And, but the other way, So to be LEED certified, you can't just say you're doing this stuff, you gotta prove it. And that's where these photos have come from, because we're documenting the things that are being done. But also then proof comes, the guy comes down, a guy in this case, wouldn't have to be, and he puts this thing in an exterior door and a fan and blows air out at a measured pressure, and he can notice how much air exchange there is in the building. So there are some leaks, believe it or not, some, a little bit of change, but not like the house I live in now, it was built in 1928. We're proving it too. That'll be certified by LEED, and that guy down here. Yeah.
So did I pass?
What?
That's my place, did I pass?
You passed, yeah. I think the standard is 5, and yours is like 3.9 or something like that. So yeah.
That was kind of an anxious day when the blower door person came.
It was our first measure of, are we doing it, are we getting it right? We're teaching these guys how to do it, they're teaching us, and we hope it's good, and it is.
We're actually buying our own blower door test equipment because the person who does this had to come from Minnesota. We pay his expenses, so we bought one that when we're done with it, we plan to sell.
And we want to be able to use it in preliminary things to make sure that everything's right as we go along, so, yeah.
That's sort of the end of the prepared comments, but if you have questions, we'd be glad to answer them, yeah.
Can you bring my dog?
Yes,
Just kinda-
dogs are allowed. They have to follow Iowa City rules, so they have to be on a leash. They're allowed in the residential parts of the common house, but not in the public parts, except for a service dog.
Is 1,200 feet the largest unit?
We have one designed or planned for 1,600 square feet, but it's quite expensive.
And no one is, well, someone did one time express an interest, but we haven't had much interest. And I think as people start thinking about it, they buy into this philosophy of living smaller, living more simply. It begins to work, and they say, well, maybe I don't need that big a unit.
Not me. I like the room.
Well, and I wouldn't say this is necessarily right for everybody. I would say that in terms of the environment, living smaller is better. So, and an example of related to the room thing is I live in a little old 3-bedroom house now. And one bedroom I have to sleep in, and one bedroom has a computer and a TV in it, and one bedroom is for if my parents visit or if one of the kids comes back. But the reality is it sits empty 90% of the time. So here you plan that in, buy a 2-bedroom unit, and count on the guest rooms, which Carolyn, we didn't mention as we went through in the common house. There are guest rooms in the common house that you can use. So when that kid comes or a friend from out of town, they can have some privacy from you and stay in the common house.
How many are sold?
16, and there are to be 36. We have 2 more people that it's a matter of basically paperwork to be 18.
And what kind of diversity of age is committed to it?
Well, we have a 5-year-old and a bunch of white hairs. And a 5-year-old's parents. And we've had some other young people, and to be honest, Carolyn mentioned, no, I guess Marcia mentioned how long we've been at this, and some of us have actually been at it longer than that. And some young people that were involved just couldn't wait. I mean, they wanted to get their kid located for kindergarten and things like that. So we've heard from other co-housing communities in the United States. We've been to the national conferences, the last 2 national conferences, and one of the things we hear commonly is that getting started, it takes people like us that have the time to spend to get it rolling. But the advantages for young people are huge because It's a safe place. There's extra grandparents. There's somebody to watch their kid if something comes up. There's somebody to drive the kid to wherever. There's dinners fixed in the common house a couple of nights a week, so they don't have to cook every night, et cetera, et cetera. So, what's the story you tell about Madison?
Oh, at Arboretum Cohousing in Madison, they had, when they all moved in, they had 2 children in the whole place, and it's 40-some units. When we visited them last year, they had 22 children. So they do come later.
We have a lot of meetings. And for people with especially young children, that may mean babysitters and not helping with homework and things like that. So those of us who abandoned work for pay now work pretty much full-time developing co-housing.
Is there like an association fee since?
Yes,
Okay.
and to be totally honest, we're not exactly sure what that's going to be because things are still falling into place. I mean, the other hand of it is there's some kind of interesting positives of that. So we have a bulk account with Mediacom where we get the internet brought in, and then individuals are going to pay $25 a month for high-speed internet. So that's a big savings. That's part of their monthly homeowner's fee, but it's a big savings for me because I'm paying $86 a month right now.
And it will cover things, it may cover things like clearing the locks, and a member may clear the locks, so that we might not
Have to hire that.
have to hire that.
Yeah.
There's a question here.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to have an open house at some point?
Ah, well, yes. Did you put her up to that, Wendy? So April 29th is National Co-Housing Open House Day, and we are going to have an open house on that day. A big thing. We'll announce it everywhere. So you're certainly welcome to come then. And actually, if you we also have these lots of meetings. One of the things we're trying to do is encourage other people to join us. And so we twice a month have what we call an information meeting. It's about an hour and a half. You'd see probably some of the same slides, but you hear some more details about what it would be like to become a member of this group, because all of us that are going to live there are the developers. So we're working to make it happen, and we're all members of this development corporation that's building the thing that's going to sell the houses to us that we're going to live in. So, which is the good of that. There are many goods of that. One is we're getting to know each other really well. But another thing is that there's no developer that's making any money, because we're not in it to make money. We're in it to make a community. And so, so we have these meetings twice a month here, one on a Saturday usually, early in the month, and then one some weeknights. So the next one is the 22nd at Uptown Bill's at 5:30 in the evening. So, and you can find those on our website too. They're always announced there.
What is the price range for the units?
Aha, good question. So it depends on how big a unit, of course. So the price range is from $165,000 for the small units, which are 515 square foot, kind of a studio thing in the common house. But you get all these extra things. I mean, I can't, that's not cheap, but there's a whole lot of stuff that comes with it. That it isn't just the house. You're getting a top-notch green LEED certified home. You're getting part of the grounds. You're getting part of the common house that has that guest room that you can use, and the laundry you can use, and the kids' room that you and your grandkids or kids can use. And there's going to be a workshop there too. So you're getting all those things. That 1,600 square foot unit, we have not built one yet, so we're not exactly sure how much it's going to be. Barb, what's the number?
Here it is.
Ah, 446. Go back to that other slide. Because, so another thing that we're trying to do is help people who are income qualified be able to live in this community. And ways we've done that is we have worked with the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County and gotten a grant from them for $50,000. We have these information meetings like I mentioned, and a woman came to one of those and said, this is really cool. My husband will never live there, but I want to help you. So she put up another $30,000. So we have $80,000 that we are going to help people who are income qualified with down payment assistance. That's often a barrier, particularly for young people. They don't have a big lump of money. I went and borrowed some money from my folks, and I remember when my folks borrowed from their folks, but that's not always true. I mean, I was middle class, you know, and so we have some money to help people get across that barrier to move in. We think that they will find that their utilities are going to be low because this place, you know, heat with a hairdryer. They're going to have the benefit of that low-cost, high-speed internet, things like that. So we think it's going to be sustainable for people to move in there.
So when I die, what happens to mine?
Do
I have a title, is that what you?
Yes, so it's just like, the reality is this is a condo association legally, just like any other in Iowa. And so a question might be, so, you know, maybe you get somebody who isn't into being a part of this thing. They don't want to be a part of community and they buy a place. Well, that's possible. The other hand of it is, if you're just looking for a place, you wouldn't choose to buy into this because it's going to cost more per square foot than some house out on the east side of Iowa City, clear out there.
Did they rent it?
Coralville. That's a good question too, Bob. So this is an owner-occupied neighborhood. Can you rent some of it? Let's say you want to rent a bedroom out to a law student because it's just right there by the law school, or a med student to help pay your mortgage. Sure, you can do that just like you can. Can you buy one and have it as a rental and live in your place in North Liberty? No, that's not what we're doing. It's owner-occupied.
How are you going to set up a governance?
What?
I mean, there are going to be a lot of things that have to be mutually decided. How
Yes.
it's going to work.
There's a lot of community work.
And
So-
how is that going to work, though? I mean, it's easy to say that's going to happen.
Because you have comments.
Have you thought about that?
Oh my goodness, we spent the 5 managers spent the weekend reading for the 3rd or 4th or 5th time the kinds of bylaws and rules and regulations to make what we want to have happen. So yeah, and that's not to say there isn't going to be more meetings and more working together. I mean, and to be honest, I think coming here and showing slides, we can show the physical things. We can't show those interpersonal things, which we think are going to be a really important part of the community. And part of the way that gets built is by working together to do things. So in the last couple of weeks, we've put together the cabinets. As a group, we bought IKEA cabinets for the common kitchen, and we as a group got together and did that. And we had people coming from southern Iowa up to help us and so forth. So, you know, yeah.
I have a question
Yep.
about the solar, and I don't know if you answered this already, I don't remember. And maybe you don't know yet, will the solar produce most of your electricity? Do you have an idea about that?
I think it, you know, the use of individuals is so different. We're not, so yes, we don't know for sure yet. I've done a little bit of calculation, and with this guy who's the electrical engineer guy, I think, I'm kind of a miser, I'm not, you know, and I'm spending more money to save more. So I'm going to have tankless water heaters. So, you know, that's if you're going to be heating water all the time, except when I'm using it. And so doing those kinds of things, I'm hoping I'm going to be close to net zero. But, you know, yeah.
Who is your contractor? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of different.
Yeah, it's true. Apex is the general contractor, and they're an Iowa City group, small.
So how do they know all these different?
Well, when we hired them, we looked, we had 10 different contractors we interviewed, and we got some people. They have done some lead projects before. They've worked with our architect who's done some other lead projects. So, and we've hired this Martha Norbeck, this young woman that did the study in Sweden, to work for us to guide them. And so
She meets with the subcontractors before a building starts. Says, this is how you're going to do this. And then these pictures that we showed were from our inspection pictures to demonstrate to lead that we're doing these things the right way. Another quality that the architect or the contractor had was he was willing to learn with us. So in some respects, it's taken longer to do the first building because everybody, all the subcontractors, the contractor, were doing something new. Apex has built the new Presbyterian church. They built Lucky's supermarket. And they've done some university buildings.
yeah.
So does Iowa have net metering for?
Yes.
So that's a help.
Yes, yeah. We'll see how it works out but between the Republican Utilities Board and.
Are there options for aging in place with assistance?
Yeah, so let's see. So we've done a whole lot of design things. So there's only one unit that has steps that go to the unit. All the rest of them, you have an ADA accessible sidewalk right to the front door with 0-step entry. Wide doorways, flipper handles, showers with seats in it. Yeah, we're thinking of all that stuff.
The elevator in the common.
Elevator in the common house, yeah.
And the stairways in the flat buildings are wide enough for a stair elevator.
Yeah, because we recognize there's a good example of, so people choose to live on the top floor of a building and then for some reason or other become differently able to get up and down those stairs. We made that stairway extra wide so we could put a chairlift in there and still get up and down with groceries beside it.
Who would put the chairlift in? The owner of the?
Yep. Yep.
The owner of the
Yep.
upstairs
Yep.
unit?
Other questions?
Are you gonna get a smart car?
What?
Smart car.
Well, we already have an all-electric car as one of our members, but it's not communally owned yet. There's a whole lot of stuff about communally owning cars, but we have that value, and a lot of us, my car sits all the time. It's just silly, so I use it occasionally for trips, but not around town. So, yeah.
Also be easy to share. I'm going to the grocery store. Do you want to go along?
Across the street from the grocery store.
That's right.
That's right.
Aldi's is right there, so you can work out. You can go to Hudson's and drink a beer. Go to Aldi's and pick up. Yeah, lots of.
Well, I think our time's about up, so I'm going to thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. We've got some little brochures if you like.